This is the Nightbird, Alison Steele for the National Guard, and our guest today, Rick Wakeman. That's the very exciting sound of White Rock, Rick Wakeman's soundtrack, original motion picture soundtrack of the Innisbrook Winter Games. And I love the way the album says composed, performed, and produced by Rick Wakeman. And on the bottom it should say, sold only by Rick Wakeman.
Yeah.
You've done every doggone thing on the album.
I didn't really have much choice. When I came to do the film, the people said that they wanted it purely as a keyboard soundtrack rather than orchestral soundtrack. And so you always have to put the credits on the album. Because,
oh, of course. Oh, I know.
And it's when I saw it, it read terrible. It reminded me of some of the terrible English radio programs where the same guy produces, directs, sings, plays the piano, does everything.
I know, that's what popped into my mind, and that's why I teased you about it. But hey, it's a deserving credit, and of course everyone has by now gathered that I am talking to Rick Wakeman, and I am delighted. It is a super album. I mean, it's already on the charts, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
I don't follow the charts that much, but I know your manager, Brian Lane, I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and he was ecstatic then. It's just a fantastic sound, all with just the keyboard, but it's overdubbed, isn't it? It's tracked?
Yes, it's all
multiple tracked. Yeah.
And there's a bit of percussion from a guy who used to be in the band that I used to have, English Rock Ensemble, a guy called Tony Fernandez. He added some percussion. But the rest is just keyboards. Yeah.
Fantastic. Had you seen the movie? Is it customary to see the movie before you write the score?
Oh, yeah. How it was done, I went for a very standard way of doing it, which is you go and see the rushes, and then before the film is pieced together, you have a meeting with the director. You discuss the music sections you want to use. You discuss the atmosphere he's trying to put over, or if there's a part that maybe lacks atmosphere, what he would like you to put in. Then you work out a timing sheet for the various accents that you want to put in. Then you put the various wipes on the film, go into the studio and do it to film, and then you do the overdubs afterwards.
It sounds so simple when you say it, but to me, of course, to any lay person, I never can really understand how it's gotten together. I mean, it's such a fascinating process, and when it comes out, it all just flows. The guy skis down the hill at the right moment, or the music comes at the right moment, whichever.
The difficulty is that you mix, you can either mix in 3 tracks, or even on 6 track. So that you record slightly differently. And the problem comes is when you come to turn it into an album, obviously you have to remix, but you also have to re-record quite a lot. Because if you watch the film and you see a guy on skis fall over, and there might be a cymbal crash or something, that looks quite fine in the middle of the music to have an accent there. But when you listen to it on its own, if there's suddenly, for no particular reason, a cymbal crash comes in, so you have to wipe those off or replace them. And without losing the flavour of the music for the film, otherwise you get the problem, for example, like on the John Barry 007 film scores, which when you actually buy the soundtrack album, it sort of bears no resemblance to the film, and then people complain.
Oh, they had to change it?
Well, yeah, that gets changed to quite a lot, like different orchestras and different people playing, it ends up totally different. Classic example of that was Listomania, which was a disaster.
Which one? The
Listomania soundtrack album.
Oh, yes.
Which was dreadful.
It had no bearing. In other words, it wasn't listenable without the movie.
Well, I had nothing to do with the putting together of the album.
You just played?
In fact, and when the album came out, I listened to it, and I think I only play on about 4 minutes of it, which is ludicrous.
Isn't that amazing? And you got credit for the whole thing, didn't you?
Yeah, which I tried desperately to get
the credit wiped off.
Wiped completely out of the way, yeah.
You never really think of that soundtrack album. Of course, it depicts action in the movie, but then what to the person? It's like movie music with no picture, so you have to use your imagination.
Yeah. It was a lot easier with this because there's hardly any talking in the film. I mean, James Coburn does a form of narration and tries out all of the various different parts of the winter sports. And the music sections are lucky, they're very long. There's only a few small sections where there's sort of 20-second pieces of music. Most of them are about 4 or 5 minutes long, which is useful because then you don't have to start trying to hash a lot of small pieces to make a large piece.
Well, I guess this was a good way to get your feet wet in movie scores.
Yeah.
We're going to take a moment here with your permission, Rick, for a word from our friends at National Guard.
The Guard belongs to the people of the National Guard. Just plain people helping people when things get a little hard.
Every employer you talk to wants people with training and years of experience. So what do you do if you're 18 and just getting out of school? Why not try a part-time job with the Army National Guard? Choose from 400 different career skills and get paid to learn, starting at $50 for just 1 weekend's worth. The Army Guard's career training gives you a big head start in the job field. Find out about it. Call us toll-free at 800-638-7600. That's 800-638-7600.
This is the Night Bird, Allison Steele, for the National Guard, and our guest today is Rick Wakeman. The album is White Rock. Everybody knows it by now. It is destined to be another Wakeman classic, and he gets total credit for it, his first soundtrack album. The original motion picture soundtrack of the Innisbrook Winter Games, performed, composed, and produced by Rick Wakeman. Very impressive. But then you've always been a very impressive man. You've cut your hair.
Yeah, afraid so.
I think you've grown taller. You put on some weight, have you? You used to be really, really thin.
Yeah, I went really, really thin. Then I went really, really fat. And now I'm somewhere in the middle, I think.
You look fine. You look fine. Now, of course, the question that I have to ask you that is on everybody's lips, can you tell us a little bit about how you happened to go back to Yes?
Yeah, that's... It came about, really, I suppose. I disbanded my band, the English Rock Ensemble, because I had the film to do and a live album that we'd done to mix and do a bit of re-recording. And I knew that I wouldn't be going on the road for about 7 or 8 months. And it's unfair to keep musicians on a retainer, just hanging about. And also, my bank manager wasn't very happy about it. So I disbanded the band. And at the end of the White Rock film, it came through till about, October. And even after I left Yes, I still retained the same management, Brian Lane. But Brian sort of came to me and said, listen, as you know, Yes are in Montreux in Switzerland recording. And he explained a bit about what was going on, which you can appreciate. I can't say what went on within the band because I wasn't there, so I don't know. He said, and Patrick's leaving, and they haven't started the album, though they've done a few demos. Would you like to go over and... well, they just want to know if you want to go over and just and literally work as a session musician on the album. And I said, yeah, that'd be fine. But I said, I'd like to go over first, hear a couple of demos or the ideas that they want to do, because if it's on the same sort of level as for example, a Relay, I mean, there's not much that I can relate to in that. So I wouldn't be able to help at all. And it wouldn't help them and it wouldn't help me. So I flew over about November the 7th to see them. And the four of them, that's John, Chris, Steve and Alan, had done a couple of demos of, very roughly, of 2 of John's songs. And I listened to it, and it was very much like what I felt the advancement should have been after Fragile and Close to the Edge. Musically, it was very song-orientated, but with a lot of sort of typical Yes playing. And we had a rehearsal that day, and I got sort of really into it. Then I stayed till the next day. And there was a party that was held by a guy called Claude Nobbs, who's the head of WEA in Switzerland. And at the party we were all like just sitting round, and I think it was Chris who acted as sort of spokesman and said, look, listen, we know you didn't like the music when you left, but you obviously seem to like what's going on now. And I said, yeah. And they said, well, we seem to like what you're doing. Do you fancy making it a more permanent thing? And I said, yeah, fine. So I went back home, literally arrived back on the Saturday, packed my bags, left England on the Sunday, and I haven't been back since.
That's great. That's great. And here is the sensational White Rock album by Rick Wakeman, After the Ball. Rick Wakeman's White Rock. And as I say, it's an additional Wakeman classic, and the one thing I want to get straight and be sure of for all the fans, Rick. But now you finished this album with Yes, your reunion album, but you're not going to discard doing solo projects now. You're going to continue to give us solos, aren't you?
No, well, as soon as we finished the Yes album, I started on my own album.
Oh, good.
Which I'll finish about the middle of June.
Oh, good.
And then I'll come most probably straight to... I'll mostly have a week off in Switzerland and come straight over here. Because we're all getting together about the second week in July from various parts of the world. I don't know where everybody's going.
That's
and then we're
good.
going to rehearse for 2 weeks. And then we start the tour at the end of July.
Good, good, because As much as all of us love having you back with Yes, we would be sorely disappointed if there weren't more albums like Six Wives and Center of the Earth. And
I think A&M would be as well, actually. And I think both A&M and my bank manager would be upset as well.
I think so. We're going to take a moment here for a message from the National Guard.
The God belongs. The God belongs. The God belongs.
Don't let your military experience go to waste. Your special skills and know-how can make you a valuable member of the Army National Guard. You can probably come in at your old pay grade. And you get insurance benefits, retirement, even PX privileges. Find out more about the Army Guard. Call us toll-free at 800-638-7600.
We're going to kind of step out a little bit of White Rock and reminisce with Rick's first solo album, Six Wives of Henry VIII. Here is Catherine of Aragon. It's always great to see you, especially looking so well.
Thanks very
Thanks
much.
for coming to see us.
Thank you.
Rick Wakeman, and this is The Night Bird, Allison Steele for the National Guard, the most important part-time job in America.